Let me show you a video that speaks right to what you're talking about, Rabbi. Here we go. Let's see Prime Minister Netanyahu as he's addressing a different world leader.
I have a message. I have a message.
Wait, here we go.
I have a message. I have a message for President Macron. Today, Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against the enemies of civilization. We're fighting in Gaza against Hamas, those savages who murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned our people on October 7th. We're fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah, the most heavily armed terror organization in the world, which was planning an even greater massacre than October 7th on our northern border, and that has rocketed Israeli towns and cities for nearly a year. We're fighting against the Houthis in Yemen and the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria that together have launched hundreds of drones and missile attacks against Israel. We're fighting against terrorists in Judea and Samaria who are trying to murder civilians in the heart of our cities. And we're fighting against Iran, which last week fired over 200 ballistic missiles directly at Israel, and which stands behind the 7-front war against Israel. As Israel fights the forces of barbarism led by Iran, all civilized countries should be standing firmly by Israel's side. Yet President Macron and some other Western leaders are now calling for an arms embargo against Israel. Shame on them. Is Iran imposing an arms embargo on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Hamas, and on its other proxies? Of course not. The axis of terror stands together. But countries who supposedly oppose this terror axis call for an arms embargo on Israel. What a disgrace. Well, let me tell you this. Israel will win with or without their support, but their shame will continue long after the war is won. For in defending ourselves against this barbarism, Israel is defending civilizations against those who seek to impose a dark age of fanaticism on all of us. Rest assured, Israel will fight until the battle is won, for our sake and for the sake of the peace and security of the entire world.
Wow. I mean, I don't, that is a moment of,
Clarity.
but there's no diplomatic, finesse there. There's no effort to soften the blow. There's no sugarcoating it. I mean, he called out Macron fully. He said, he gave him what's called in modern discourse shaming. He went totally, he really also showed he was ticked off. Like, you could see it. He's like honestly angry. So, there's a moment of, it's like, boy, that's like a moment in this war as well. It's like the prime minister of Israel is ripping the prime minister of France, and it just with no holds barred. That's definitely a moment for me in this war. Let me ask you this, Rabbi Przansky. I listen to your classes, and you have great history classes. Can you tell me this story so far in terms of a history class? Can you see this in hindsight? Can you see the big picture of it? Can you help us see the big picture of it?
I think it's a little too early to draw ultimate conclusions, but let's just say that's a very important moment when the prime minister spoke with tremendous passion and clarity about what the challenges of this generation are. So first, bravo.
Right.
Good to hear. But
Right.
I did pick up on something.
Mm-hmm.
Macron is really a proxy because he said Macron and other Western leaders. And to whom is he referring? Obviously Biden and Harris and the American administration, which have played a double game since the war started, since the massacre of October 7th. Recall, on October 8th, Anthony Blinken called for a ceasefire.
Wow.
Tweet, which of course he deleted within a few days because Israel had not yet begun to fire. But how hollow, how disgraceful is that? Imagine if anyone in the world had called on America on September 12th, 2001, ceasefire, or in what's become the most popular term of American diplomacy, de-escalate. De-escalate. Let diplomacy do its work. Well, it's diplomacy that put us in the position that we are now, because over 15 years ago, in a failed war, the Second Lebanon War, when Israel again withdrew from southern Lebanon after being attacked incessantly, And the United Nations Security Council passed the resolution 1701, in which the UN guaranteed that Hezbollah would have, and its forces and its weaponry would have to remain north of the Litani River, and there would be a United Nations and international force to see to that. Well, what happened? It never happened. Hezbollah right away moved up to the border, and as we're seeing unfold in real time, they built a similar underground infrastructure to that which Hamas built in Gaza, under the very nose, yes, of the Israeli governments, but also under the very nose of the United Nations, which was supposed to thwart this, but did not. So these calls for de-escalation and for diplomacy and for a ceasefire are worse than hollow. They're repugnant. And at this point in the conflict, at any point in the conflict, it's tantamount to declaring we want a terrorist enemy to survive, to be able to kill Jews another day. And what you, Israel, is doing in order to defeat them, that is roiling the international community, because you have no right to defend yourselves against these horrendous attacks. Take it like a victim and count your blessings that some of you survived and be done with it. But we're going to embargo weapons. We're going to have additional United Nations resolutions undermining the claim of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. We're going to do whatever we can to make sure that Israel does not win. That's not only Macron, sad to say. That's been the approach of the Biden-Harris administration since October 7th, 2023. And remember, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, 2023.
Right.
So Hamas breached that ceasefire in a most horrific way. And now for the invader, the murderer, the marauder, the rapist, the kidnapper, when the day of reckoning comes, to say, stop, stop, uncle, now we want a ceasefire. That's now how it works in the real world. In the real world, the real spiritual world, the evildoer has to be punished, and punished in such a way that most of them don't exist anymore. The others surrender and cower in fear, and their entire society is deterred from ever trying such an attack again. That's what we're looking for.
I don't know if you've been catching Rabbi Brzezinski, but there's comments being posted right now by Yocheved, my producer, and my other producer today, who's Elazar Menachem, my son, who's helping out today. He just recently turned bar mitzvah, Mazal Tov. And there's so many of these comments are from people in these countries like Portugal, European countries, other countries were saying, like, I am against what my leadership is doing. I know the Jewish people are good and right. I know they're fighting our fight. Here's people from Holland, people from Portugal, people writing from every place in the world, from Australia. People are saying, like, I stand with Israel. I stand with Israel, and I condemn. Here it is, my disgraceful. Can I have that one back just for a second, please? The one with the Canadian. I stand with Israel from Canada and condemn our disgraceful political leaders. I see that a lot. I see that a lot. I see people saying that.